walk-in freezer connecting to yet another door. The door closes behind him and he moves toward the far door, hearing banging noises the entire time. He makes his way toward the door and opens it up, coming face to face with an alien that we get an up-close glimpse of. It peers around the corner and looks directly at him, although it looks like the alien is just as hesitant as he is. The guy behind the camera then freaks out and turns to run away, but his escape is cut short after he falls, dropping the camera. At this point, the footage cuts out and goes dark, leaving us to assume that he was finally probed and dumped somewhere before his abductees took off. He had to have survived his ordeal because he posted the video, possibly opting to avoid showing his face because he was embarrassed about whatever happened to him. Alien abductee shame post-abduction is a very real concern, people. Think about it for a second. How would you feel if you were stolen by a group of aliens and locked away in a meat locker for whatever nefarious purposes they choose? Look, this footage is amateur at best, but a good first attempt. Hopefully this guy can put together a better, authentic video after he's received a little constructive criticism. He could definitely use it, but we should say again that we think he does have potential. Number 4. Night vision sighting. A video taken at night with a handheld infrared camera shows us what looks a lot like a strange little creature hanging out at the edge of a road before taking off into the sky, disappearing into the night. The entire scene is pitch black, and we're amazed that this guy was able to see anything at all. He gets right up close to the creature, seeming pretty surprised about the ordeal, which makes sense. If you ran into a strange creature at night, you'd probably be pretty freaked out too. We don't think this is an alien or a ghost, which seems to be the general consensus based on the comments we've seen, but we think that the video is far too blurry to make any real suggestions about what it could be. But we think the culprit is probably some kind of a bird or other small creature. It could also just be an optical illusion, caused as a result of the poor image quality and maybe some kind of light source. Given the surroundings, the entire scene is pretty spooky, meaning people's imaginations are always gonna run wild when trying to decipher what's going on. It's nighttime during the winter time, and the guy behind the camera seems to be on a snowy dirt track, complete with barns in the background. If an alien was gonna pop by to say hi, then this place is pretty fitting. It's remote and quiet, but it's also a spot that probably sees a lot of wildlife, with this being a simple case of misidentification in less than ideal conditions. It's still a good video and made us think twice about it. Whenever we go back and take another look, we can't help but feel like the creature does seem to be much more alien in appearance each and every time. It's hard to believe that an alien would be so careless, but if this one happens to have poor hearing and eyesight, then it's feasible that it could have been surprised. Do you think it's an alien or simply a wild animal? Let us know in the comments below. Number 3. Ghost Hunter Close Call. Ghost hunter John Mooner had the scare of his life when he had one hell of a terrifying run-in with a creature that sounds like it's straight out of the land of nightmares. He's convinced that it's an alien, but others are clamoring that it's probably a chupacabra. Looking at the footage, we think that this is probably closer to a gray alien in appearance, and we thought we should add it to today's countdown. Mooner is based out of the UK and was able to think fast when he was attacked by this ferocious creature, fending it off and snapping some close-ups all at the same time. He said that it stared at him blankly and had an ethereal appearance, not having any definite shape, with dark black eyes. It then began to float around him, making him feel extremely uncomfortable all of a sudden, with a wave of panic settling over him. It blocked his passage past it as he pulled out his camera, defying all logic by deciding to stay put and not immediately tear off in the opposite direction like any sane person would have done. He says that he initially thought he had passed another hiker, but noticed the unmistakable alien appearance when he got up close. He miraculously got his camera out and snapped a shot. He attempted to take another, but the batteries tumbled out as he brought the camera back up to get a clear shot. This makes him stupidly brave and downright idiotic in general, with that being a pretty poor time to drop your AA's. The alien then came at him, moving quickly in his direction. Mooner finally regained his senses and began to run, heading into the woods the way he had just come. He said he ran for miles before he suddenly began coughing up blood out of nowhere. He says that the alien must have done something to him to cause that reaction, but he can't imagine what it was. Exams have shown that he's still relatively healthy, with nothing terribly out of the ordinary like a missing kidney or something. Mooner is claimed to have seen UFOs repeatedly over the years, with most being iffy at best, and we think he's just looking for attention. On the other hand, he is telling the truth, then this guy is probably the most unlucky person in the world, being a magnet for malicious aliens from outer space. Number 2. Rancher's Close Encounter. An alien hanging out on the roof of a building has been causing quite a stir, with all sorts of commenters weighing in with their own, sometimes outlandish theories. Still, others have claimed that it's nothing more than an elaborate hoax. The video shows a very strange beast hanging out in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. It takes off pretty quickly after being spotted, not giving much time to really get a good look at it, although stills make it look pretty fake to us. The video was supposedly taken by a ranch owner who heard something strange going on outside, deciding to pull out his camera and investigate further. Being a rancher, we're sure he's used to random creatures showing up from time to time and has no qualms with heading outside to scare most of them off, but this is definitely out of his league. He stops with shock and doesn't try chasing the thing down, which is a safe bet. We don't think this video has much to it and suspect that it was put together by someone who had a lot of time on their hands and not much to keep themselves busy. The quality is poor, and the creature itself is a poor attempt at showcasing alien life. I mean, the thing is humanoid enough, but the odd movements and appearance are just too much for us. And we suggest this editor start using a little more in the way of advanced texturing when putting together his next masterpiece. It's not a bad attempt, with the standard poor quality helping to make it look like it was taken by a simple rancher who's not quite up on technology, probably using an old camera. We still never knew of any cameras to have quality that's so poor, even back in the day when they were still fairly new. This all speaks to the fact that this video is probably a complete hoax, with the creature shown just being an early attempt at making a monster. If they were new to editing, then we'll give them credit where credit's due and state that it was good enough to fool a ton of viewers, so maybe we're being unnecessarily harsh with our critique. Number 1. Forest Alien. This gray alien looks more like a forest nymph or a dryad. First of all, it's freakishly tall and does seem to have a very distinct green tint to it. The group of hikers doesn't seem to know what they're getting themselves into, plodding ahead towards the alien with their heads down. We get that they gotta watch their step, but that sight up in the distance is pretty freaky. We can't imagine looking through your photos after the fact and coming across something like this. We doubt they contacted the thing though, because they made it out in one piece and were able to upload the image for us to come across. The alien does look pretty docile, just standing there maintaining a silent vigil. Its size and coloring make us think it's just some strange shadows being cast on some awkward trees and not a visitor from another planet. First of all, that thing couldn't last a day on Earth without being spotted after someone literally bumped into it, with the woods not really providing much protection, as evidenced by our group of weekend warriors here. Its spaceship would have to be enormous to accommodate this alien. Something that big would absolutely be spotted if it passed through our atmosphere, with multiple nations mobilizing on that spot if it even began to touch down. We do like the idea of this thing being a dryad, which is a mythical creature that features in lore from multiple ancient civilizations. They inhabit trees and spend their days engaging in playful antics and engaging with other forest spirits. They're supposed to be quite shy, staying away from people, which explains why this one gave this particular group a wide berth. These people would have had cameras ready to expose its existence to the world, with this picture almost doing it in, but looking just normal enough to make skeptics like us assume that it's just an optical illusion. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Parks feature more than their fair share of creepy events. The following 5 creepy things caught on camera in parks certainly fit the bill. These sightings range from the paranormal to the downright bizarre and everything in between. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Masked Weirdo. People are freaking out about clowns these days for no real reason. We're sure the original sightings were a little spooky, but it's degraded into a bunch of wannabes trying to feel important. We say it's time to stop getting creeped out by clown pretenders, after this next one anyway, who has less of a desperate air about him and seems more like someone who would beat you down before taking your wallet, your phone, and your keys just for the sake of it. This video was posted on YouTube by a couple of guys who ran into a pretty awkward clown. While they might be brave, that mask has "hell no" written all over it. The best we could come up with was that this guy's high or drunk, or both. We think the fact that he isn't getting all done up to freak people out is even more terrifying than some guy in a clown suit. It's obvious this guy isn't really following any trend here, which makes him straight up creepy as hell. You gotta be some kind of loose cannon to toss a mask on and walk around in public at nighttime. Our rule when encountering strange men in dark pants is to quickly and quietly get out of there, especially if they have that crackhead vibe about him. This dude ticks all the boxes, so Buddy with the camera would be on his own before he ever got a clear shot. Good thing for him, his friend is a little more loyal because, well, if he was on his own, he might not have captured this footage before running in the other direction. Then again, even they can't take it after a certain point. After the guy notices our two videographers huddled together for safety, he begins staggering toward them. That's when they decide they've had enough, with one of them saying they should bolt if he gets any closer. He then shuffles a little closer, and the guys realize he's definitely got a bead on him. The video then cuts off and leaves us assuming that the guys behind the camera hightailed it to somewhere without creepy clowns wearing hoodies, basketball shorts, and flip-flops. That being said, if he's wearing flip-flops, he's probably not all that much of a threat when all is said and done. Number 4. Stick creatures. The aliens have landed. At least that definitely seems to be the case in this next video. A security camera in Yosemite National Park picked up this creepy footage in 2011, which features some otherworldly looking creatures. They slowly creep in out of the woods and slink across the width of the frame over the course of a minute or so. Looking like a pair of pants with heads attached at the waist, these unidentified aliens would certainly send shivers up the spines of anyone who actually came across them one night. Yosemite is the site of many supposed ET and UFO sightings over the years, with many citing its relatively quiet environment. They seem to be forgetting a fairly recent study that proved that noise levels have spiked in recent years due to human settlement in the surrounding area. These noise levels are having some serious impacts on both plant and animal life in the park, and could eventually pose a very serious problem if left unchecked. Yosemite is also a notoriously crowded and busy park, with overwhelming amounts of campers and day trippers taking over its expanse pretty much every day of the year. With that amount of people showing up to potentially spot them, we're pretty sure aliens don't have any reason to choose Yosemite over, say, Dallas. Eastern Europe would undoubtedly be a much more apt location for ETs if they hope to remain hidden. Even so, this footage and many other videos like it beg to differ, stating empathetically that Yosemite, for one reason or another, is absolutely a hot spot for aliens. We think that people are trying too hard to find their 15 minutes of fame. Call us crazy, but we don't think it's all that hard to put on a strange costume and take a stroll past a security camera, which is probably what happened here. Still, the footage is exceptionally creepy, and we wouldn't take the time to figure out if these figures were just kids playing a prank before we hightailed it right out of there at top speed. Number 3. Elusive Peeping Tom. This next location is a little more appropriate when it comes to potential alien sightings. The footage was shot at Pausberg National Monument in Holland. It seems that a couple of guys were hiking to the Rangers Fire Tower to take in the view of the surrounding area, which is supposed to be pretty magnificent. Along the way, they ran into another pair of hikers. Unfortunately, the site was closed due to vandalism, which put their plans for the day off a little bit. This is when they witnessed something pretty damn creepy that scared the entire group and shook them all up quite a bit. They managed to capture the entire incident and thankfully uploaded it for the world to see. After walking away from the tower, they suddenly hear loud banging coming from the surrounding woods. At first, they have no idea what the source is, but suddenly they see a strange figure hiding behind a tree, staring at them every few seconds before disappearing behind the tree. When they notice the figure, the banging noises seem to stop until one incredibly loud bang that sounds a little like a small explosion sends the team running for for safety. They get a pretty good shot of the creature close up, which looks like a person wearing a large black hood. Only the head, shoulders, and neck of the figure are seen. The group did get out safely, with one of them eventually handing the footage over to a friend to post. The creepy figure in the video does look a little like a person, but that sickly gray, half-obscured face suggests otherwise. This could be a video put together by a few bored friends in order to troll the internet a little, but we think it shows more promise than most. The eerie noises, ghostly figure, and loud explosion, coupled with the guys seeming genuinely scared, all make us question what that particular group of hikers encountered that day. These types of videos usually feature poor acting skills. It's genuinely hard to make a video look unexpected if it's actually been pre-planned. If that's the case here, these guys do deserve some kudos for their talent and on picking up that terrifyingly creepy costume. If, however, this was something unexplainable, these guys might have caught some crystal clear footage of a real-life alien. We'll leave the ultimate decision up to you. We figured this footage was too good to pass up and is absolutely creepy enough to make today's countdown. Number 2. White figure. Our next creepy park sighting comes from Singapore. The footage was captured by a Malaysian tourist who also happened to be active in an online paranormal enthusiast's website. When they returned home, they uploaded the footage for us to track down and present to you as our number 2 spot on the countdown. A group of friends was fishing in a park in some pretty miserable nighttime conditions when they spotted something off. One of them had their phone out ready to capture the footage of their strange encounter. The mysterious white figure drops down from a tree to take in its surroundings, making itself pretty clearly visible before retreating back into its leafy hiding spot. The rain falling down all around the area simply adds to the level of creepiness, coming down in a steady blanket and drowning out ambient noise. This would have been a pretty dull walk through Sembawang Park if it hadn't been for the odd creature that makes its creepy appearance. Worth noting here, the area was the site of a bloody mass execution back in the day. Since then, countless people have claimed to see strange sights and ghostly apparitions. The park is somewhat famous for these sightings, which is probably why our self-proclaimed paranormal investigator was hanging out there in the first place. We bet that he probably knew exactly what he was doing and was ready for any eventuality, especially one of a ghostly nature. The figure itself is definitely strange, although the poor video quality means we'll have to take the videographer's word with regard to the ghost not simply being a plastic bag or some other everyday item stuck in a tree. Even so, the strange apparition seems to grow and move around in a way that's fairly animalistic. It could be that the creature was nothing more than an everyday animal that our cameraman was unaware of. Despite these doubts, we do think the video is creepy as sin. The darkness surrounding the scene, the heavy rain, and the spooky tree-bound figure all add up to make Sembawang Park somewhere we'll happily avoid after the sun goes down. If this was a tortured soul of one of the area's previous victims, we'd rather not be around to see just how badly that could go for us. Number 1. Empty swing in motion. Our last and creepiest park sighting comes out of the good old US of A and was filmed by family man Scott Denton. All he wanted was to take his kids out for a seaside day at the park. When he got there, however, he quickly changed his mind. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until he pulled up next to a swing set that was seemingly possessed by something unexplainable. There was no wind that day and no reason why one particular ghost swing kept violently pitching back and forth. All the other lighter swings around it are completely motionless, while their neighbor goes absolutely nuts with no external input whatsoever. The strangest part is that the video continues uncut for much longer than it would take for the force of a push to dissipate, and even the kids are seriously freaked out. Scott states at the start of the video that the swinging had been going on for about 2 minutes prior to him pulling the camera out, and a little ways in, the swing actually starts swinging faster. It also switches up its momentum partway through, jumping back and forth between a front to back and side to side motion a few times during the length of the video. With a ghost swing in play, it's clear that nobody involved even wants to get out of the car, let alone go any closer. We will concede that there are times when Scott pans the camera back toward the car, giving any accomplice a window to run up and push the swing. Even if this was the case, their accomplice would have to be pretty quick and fairly coordinated to get in and out before being caught by the camera again. Either way, It's an impressive video that, if real, would make anyone reconsider ever hopping on a swing again. Making this concept even creepier is that the swing in question is arguably the largest and looks like it's meant for smaller children who can then strap themselves in. The addition of the straps and the fact that this is supposed to be a safety swing makes us wonder what possibly could have happened to traumatize a kid into haunting it afterward. Whatever the cause, this swing is the ultimate in creepy. If this was an elaborate prank, we gotta give credit where credit's due, because this video certainly has us spooked. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Most people don't consider the things living in the sewers, with many assuming that they're filled with rats and not much else. There are actually a wide range of strange beasts that make their way into our sewers, with a few of those being caught on camera for our entertainment. Some of these are disgusting, with others ending up just being amusing pranks. These 5 sewer monsters caught on camera and spotted in real life are definitely worth taking a look at. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Fatberg. Our first monster on today's countdown isn't quite what you're expecting. It is a serious monster, but it isn't alive, and it never was. It ended up being found in a sewer in East London after a blockage was reported. A team was sent down to investigate and found what appears to be a 250-meter-long hunk of congealed fat and other waste products taking up a huge portion of the pipe. The enormous piece is a mix of everything you put down your drain, along with a massive helping of fat to help stick it all together. If you think that's one of the most disgusting things you've ever heard of, we don't know how a team stepped foot in that sewer without being overcome, not to mention coming across this thing and managing not to drop dead on the spot from shock and the smell. This monster, while not all that traditional, is shocking, and we're happy to never think about anything this revolting again, although that image seems to be burned into our retinas forever. Just be thankful that you don't live in London. If you do, then we apologize and recommend you start paying attention to what goes down the drain at home. This mess shouldn't have ever gotten to be this bad, and it's basically a result of people tossing whatever waste they feel like into the sink or toilet and sending them down the main sewer line. The cleanup job was estimated to take 3 weeks, an enormous amount of time when all they're doing is unclogging a drain pipe. That drain pipe, however, sees a ton of waste every single day, and cleaning it out would mean redirecting anything heading in that direction. We assume that they've got it all worked out, but we don't envy whoever it is that got volunteered for that job. The entire mass weighs a whopping 130 tons. Which does help to explain why cleaning it out will take so long. That's a huge clog and puts anything you've ever seen before to shame. So the next time your toilet gets clogged up and you want to freak out about it, just think about this one and realize your problems could be a lot worse. At least your toilet won't take 3 weeks to fix. If it does, then it's probably time to call a plumber and stop trying to fix it yourself. Number 4. Unidentified mass. One thing we didn't expect when we first heard about this sewer monster is that it would end up being real. This makes the disgusting video footage even more revolting, with the answer to what this thing is still being unknown. It was found in Raleigh, North Carolina, and has people quite legitimately freaking out. We'd expect this kind of creature to be in a Ghostbusters scene instead of hanging out in a US sewer pipe, but the environmental EMS coordinator for public utilities in the city has both confirmed the existence of the creature and also restated that she still isn't sure what the hell it is. When she first saw the video, she assumed it was a slime mold that was at a particular point in its life cycle. This can see these molds slightly throbbing, but not really to the extent that this video indicates. After a little time had passed, she then released a public statement saying that the mass was actually some form of worm, without elaborating further other than to assure the city residents that the pipe this critter was found in wasn't attached to the city's main line and would therefore not be a threat to public safety. The most likely answer to what this thing could be is that it's a large mass made up of many tiny organisms. They're known as bryozoans and could explain things. Many scientists have shouted down this idea though, saying instead that they do have to be worms. The debate is pretty fierce considering the docile professional demeanor of most scientists, with proponents of all theories unwilling to back down. While everyone tries to work out what this pulsing mass is, we say they should just tear the pipe out and burn the thing in thermite just to be safe. We really don't need any facehugger aliens laying anything inside of us, thank you very much. We also don't like the idea of chugging down a glass of water that worms have been wriggling around in, assuming there's a chance they could get into the water supply. That would make for a very serious hazard to public health and safety, and no amount of filtering would make us feel safe. The people of Raleigh don't seem to have been affected too much, which is nice, but having a state official put out a statement to reassure us, just in case, would very much have the opposite effect, given how many serious health violations have initially been met with that exact type of statement. Number 3. United Utilities Monster. This next video is a little less gross and much more lighthearted than alien worm infestations or fatbergs weighing more than we can comprehend. It's supposed to have been taken by a utilities company in the UK that goes by the name of United Utilities. United is a pretty big deal, and we weren't sure it was their footage until we found out that they did in fact release it themselves. The video was featured in an ad campaign that was geared towards warning people about the dangers of flushing objects down the toilet that don't actually belong there. It seems like the good people of London didn't get that memo, however, and probably should have got themselves caught up a little sooner. The video shows a creepy sewer line that continues quite a long way. After a little bit of walking around, the smaller brick-lined walls open up and reveal a larger pipe that ends in a T-junction. As the camera approaches the junction, a lightning-fast figure whizzes by in a flash, disappearing just as quickly as it appears. Many people thought this footage was real when they first saw it and lost their minds. United Utilities had a ton of fun fielding all sorts of calls from concerned citizens telling them they should do something about their monster problem. We should remember that this is the same group that saw people jump from buildings when War of the Worlds first aired as a radio broadcast, summing up their gullibility levels quite succinctly. The video, for any who were still on the fence, was a hoax and was only supposed to grab the audience's attention and not give them full-on cardiac arrest. We also assumed that the cameraman would react at least a little bit to seeing a strange monster, but they don't miss a beat, keeping their camera dead steady, which should have been everyone's first clue that the footage wasn't genuine. We think it's an impressive ad, and it definitely is one that you'll remember after watching it through. It did its job wonderfully as far as informing the public in an engaging way is concerned, apart from those fat burgers in London, those troublemakers, and we think it's better than most monster videos we've seen in a long time. Number 2. Floridian Troubles. Number 2 on today's countdown starts right in the thick of things, with a wildlife expert wrangling an enormous gator out of a sewer drain. Alligators are pretty vicious creatures in the wild, with this one being quite a specimen. The gator seems to have made its way in before getting stuck halfway and not being able to get back out. Residents noticed the animal and decided to call it in for everyone's safety, including the animal. The best part about this video is that this seems to be a fairly routine sight in Tampa. Living with gators seems to be par for the course, with this 9-foot monster probably not the largest one this guy's had to fish out tail first. It also turns out that some residents keep gators in their ponds at home in order to keep out other pests, such as feral pigs. Call us nuts, but we'd pick pigs over gators any day, and we don't think one pest should be replaced with another that's liable to kill you and eat you whole for dinner. We can't believe that people in the US still have to take on gators in this day and age during their day-to-day, but there you have it. Even more worrying is the trend involving people keeping alligators as pets, only to release them once they grow too big to care for. These gators are already used to people by this point, making them much more likely to go wandering around the suburbs when looking for a meal. The guy in this video does know what he's doing, with all sorts of gear being used to pry the gator free from this particular drain. It doesn't seem too fussed when it does finally pop out, looking more relieved to be free than anything. Then again, we don't really know what a pissed off gator looks like up close when compared to a docile one, so we guess we're not the best group to declare the coast clear. It does make a little snap at the guy pulling its tail, but he looks like he's not too worried, and we assume that he knows how to handle a gator, with this supposedly being so commonplace. Number 1. Dragon Surprise. The next time you're strolling through Bangkok, you might want to take a look down every once in a while to inspect the sewers, because they might be holding a little more than you expect. This video was captured by a tourist who noticed the beast and held off on his surprise long enough to get some good footage. He wasn't the first to notice the creature, being alerted to its presence by a large group that had already gathered. He called the creature a Komodo dragon in its title, although it's more likely to be a water monitor, which are fairly common. That's good news for anyone who happens to be close by, as Komodo dragons can be quite vicious and have a mean bite. This water monitor is still impressive, and it would be a really cool thing to see up close and personal, even if it happened to be wading through garbage and waste. This being a fairly common occurrence all over Asia, we're sure the locals weren't too bothered and are probably used to these sorts of things, although probably not every day. The lizard itself is also pretty laid back about the entire thing, not stopping its slow plod to wherever it happens to be heading. If you think this is nuts, just remember that Florida does have sewer gators, so we just consider these water monitors to be the Asian equivalent of those, although they do seem less inclined to scoop these creatures up and keep them away from people. Water monitors are less dangerous than gators, however, being no real threat to humans, even when challenged, which does change things a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Versus spiders. This is one nasty wasp and reproduces by using a form of zombification. It's found in Costa Rica, which might lead travelers to avoid the ecotourism destination, although we can all rest easy knowing that it doesn't actually target or affect humans. In this case, its victim is a particular species of spider. This spider host is incredibly important to the wasp because it's used as a kind of forced labor in order to build a nest for the wasp's cocoon. The process begins when a wasp finds a suitable spider to prey on, and its science fiction-esque path continues from there. The wasp's next step is to sting the spider in order to paralyze it for a small amount of time. During this window, the wasp lays an egg on the abdomen of the host spider, which is secured in place. Once this egg hatches, it produces a larva that then begins to feast on the spider's blood as it goes about its day-to-day routine. After a few weeks of feeding off the spider, the larva then needs a suitable spot to build its cocoon. This is achieved by injecting a special chemical into the host spider, which then causes it to build a very particular web. This new variety of web is much stronger and can therefore properly support the wasp larva cocoon even during periods of intense wind and rain. The chemicals basically take over the brain of the spider at this point, and once it builds the web nest, it then moves to the very center and proceeds to stop moving altogether. The next step in this process involves the spider devouring the spider's insides after injecting it with a poison. Once the spider is sufficiently consumed in this way, the wasp larva then constructs its cocoon, hanging it from the center of the newly built spider web. Once the larva has developed a little further, it emerges as a fresh wasp, ready to descend on yet another unsuspecting spider. What's really astonishing about this entire process is how the larvae are able to completely take control of these spiders' actions with the injection of a simple chemical. Their altered state is creepy to be sure, and is incredibly similar to what zombies are supposed to go through. This natural zombification is astounding and could offer incredible insights into the workings of the brain and how it affects behavior. There are also a number of other wasps that manipulate their hosts to do their bidding, each specializing on a particular species. Not much is known about how these wasps evolved to include such an advanced trick in their arsenal, but more research is constantly being conducted. Number 4. Jewel wasp versus cockroaches. Number 4 on our countdown is another wasp, also known as the emerald cockroach wasp. This one is worthy of note because of the way it infects not spiders, but cockroaches, hence its name. It is brightly colored, and like Hymenopepimyces argyrafica, lives a solitary existence, far from the normal behavior we expect most wasps to engage in. The jewel wasp is found in abundance in South Africa, Asia, and many islands in the South Pacific, especially during warmer seasons. It's interesting to note that they were also introduced to Hawaii in 1941 to control the roach population there, but the parasitic wasp wasn't able to combat them on such a large scale. When a wasp finds a cockroach to use as a host, It injects a venom into very specific and precise areas of the roach's brain. The first sting is injected into a thoracic ganglion to paralyze its victim in its front legs. This is followed up by a second, more potent sting that is located in the cockroach's brain. The second sting slows down the roach's reaction times to perceived dangers and also causes it to groom itself repeatedly. This is potentially due to the fact that the venom blocks a specific neurotransmitter, although further study is needed to confirm the hypothesis and deduce exactly how it causes such behavior. Another behavior that's been observed is that the wasp then chews off a large portion of the roach's antenna, which is believed to either help the wasp regain energy or ensure that it injected the correct amount of venom into its host. One of these severed antennae are then used to direct the roach, much like a leash, to the wasp's burrow. Once inside, the wasp lays an egg on the roach's abdomen. The infected roach then just sits there without concern for any apparent danger. After remaining in the burrow for another few days, the wasp larva then hatches and begins to use the roach as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The larvae even seem able to pick and choose which organs they consume in order to keep the roach alive as long as possible. Once thoroughly torn apart from the inside out, the roach's body then serves as a protective spot for the larva to grow a cocoon. Once it's fully grown, the wasp emerges from the cockroach's body to begin their lives that span for several months. Female jewel wasps are able to infect multiple roaches after mating, which only takes a few minutes at the most, though the male wasp will then claim that this has never happened to him and usually he can last much longer. The ability of these wasps to alter the behavior of these roaches makes them spreaders of yet another wasp-borne zombification process. Number 3. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis versus ants. Our third item moves away from parasitic wasps that use other creatures for manual labor, food, and incubation chambers, and focus more on a deadly parasitic fungus that similarly infects its victims' brains and forces them to perform actions that are completely out of character in order to serve the host's purposes. This zombie-creating predator is actually a variety of fungus that was first discovered by a British naturalist by the name of Alfred Wallace back in 1859. Much like the wasps we spoke about earlier, these cordyceps fungi each focus on a specific species, with this particular entomopathogen preying on ants of the Campanati tribe, which includes carpenter ants along with several others. This fungus begins by releasing spores that attach to any ants unfortunate enough to cross their paths. This mechanism allows the cordyceps fungi to stop any one species from gaining too much control over their ecosystem, as the greater their numbers, the greater their chances of infection. The spores then begin to spread throughout the ant's body and begin to release compounds that directly affect the victim's behavior. Because of these chemical changes, ants that usually spend their time way up in tree canopies begin to make their way closer to the forest floor, where the environment is better suited to fungal growth. The fungi also causes intermittent seizures in the ants, which shake them loose from their higher perches and drops them toward the ground. From there, the ant climbs up the stem of a plant and affixes itself to the underside of a leaf. It's worth mentioning here that markings just like the ones these ants make when under their fungi invaders' control exactly match those found on a preserved leaf fossil dating back 48 million years old. This suggests that these fungi have been around for a very long time. Once locked onto its leaf, the ant slowly atrophies and wastes away, leaving a perfect meal for the fungus. Once it reproduces, it releases another cloud of spores that float on the breeze, waiting to infect new ants in the same way. Unlike parasitic wasps, this process is unseen and is a perfect example of a zombie virus in nature. The fungus also seems to be able to protect the infected ants from further microbial or fungal growths once they're possessed, which also serves to protect the fungus itself and maintain its life cycle. This might help with the fact that Ophiocordyceps unilateralis itself is susceptible to another hyperparasite that reduces its effectiveness and inhibits the release of spores. Number 2. Hairworm tactics. These parasitic worms are able to survive in extreme conditions. They need the correct environment to complete each step of a fairly elaborate life cycle, and this is a huge benefit. Hairworms are aquatic in their adult form, but many of their species require insects that are land-based to develop their eggs. For this to happen, adults must mate in water and then give birth to free-floating eggs. These eggs hatch to reveal a larva that must then burrow itself into a host in order to begin its next developmental stage. Once hatched, these larvae will bury themselves in anything from a snail to a mosquito in the hope that this creature is then eaten by their next host. Crickets are their regular victims, but they've been found in many other insects as well, including beetles. These larvae then develop into long, thin worms that completely take over their host. They're usually many times their host's length, and this is the stage where they start manipulating the behavior of their hosts by altering their brain chemistry. Since the hairworm needs an aquatic environment to mate and reproduce in, it forces the insect it inhabits to search out a wet environment. If the worms simply broke out wherever the crickets happen to be, they could very easily dry out, which would mean the end of them. This process is not understood all that well, and scientists are still trying to figure out how they perform their manipulation. Luckily for them, the hairworm is able to survive freezing temperatures, which allows researchers to keep them on deck almost indefinitely. If they weren't quite so hardy, they would be much more difficult to study because they would be more difficult to breed in laboratory settings. This also means that they're able to remain dormant in their hosts for the same extended periods and continue to infect them after, say, a winter's hibernation, which makes them much stranger and more terrifying. Thankfully for us, this specific species of parasitic worms don't infect humans, so we won't have to worry about being driven to drown ourselves by a zombie virus just yet. Number 1. Euhaplorchus californiensis versus shorebirds, horn snails, and killifish. Our next parasite that modifies the behavior of its host in order to increase chances of survival and procreation is the parasite Euhaplorchus californiensis, which, much like hairworms, have a fairly complicated time making their way from one host vessel to the next. They begin their lives with the parasite's eggs being released in bird droppings. The hope for the parasites here is that the birds will defecate over the water, which puts the eggs in the path of aquatic horn snails. These snails serve as a perfect place for these parasites to grow up, and they also make the snails sterile, ensuring that their new home won't be disrupted by the snail's own reproductive tendencies. Once they've matured for a few generations and built themselves up into a tiny army, these parasites then swim out en masse and right into the gills of killifish, where they latch on and make their way up a special nerve toward the fish's brain. The parasite then forms a coating over the fish's brain that induces symptoms very much like seizures. They're also more prone to swimming closer to the surface. These jerky motions close to the surface make it easier for birds to eat these fish, where the parasite lays its eggs in the bird's stool, repeating the cycle. The ability for this parasite to take over the brains of infected fish while simultaneously surviving through so many complicated steps involving multiple hosts makes them a force to be reckoned with where zombie-esque manipulations of other creatures' brains is concerned. Freaky stuff, right? Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. The world is filled with giants of the animal kingdom, with recent footage showing some real monsters. These 5 giants caught on camera and spotted in real life are bound to amaze you, and we can't wait to get started. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Snake Hoax. People went a little crazy when the internet produced a photo of this ridiculously oversized snake. Touted as the world's biggest snake, the picture was supposedly taken in the Amazon River in Africa. That's your first sign that something's a little amiss. The story goes that a crack team of Africa's Royal British Commandos hunted the snake for weeks, with the elusive creature managing to avoid them for the majority of that time. The picture came with reports that the snake was a danger to everyone in the surrounding area, having killed a whopping 257 people. On top of that, the snake was supposed to have been credited with taking out 2,325 animals, which is a pretty steep number. The team that captured it said it was 134 feet long and weighed 2,067 kilograms. That's one hell of a snake. At least, it would be if this story had any ounce of fact to it. The reality is that this was one of the internet's many hoaxes. It's one that definitely took off, inspiring fear in huge numbers of people who believed the story. If there was a snake of that size lurking around in this day and age, you can be sure that we probably wouldn't find out with some random picture and a story attached. This story has been disproven time and time again, yet it still keeps coming back to life. On top of the snake residing in the Amazon, in Africa, is the fact that the British Commandos haven't been around since World War II, making them an odd group to be hunting snakes. I mean, they may have invented a time machine back in the 40s, but we seriously doubt it. There are so many holes in this story, we're just gonna stop at that and call it a day. With all the hype that real giants on our planet can generate, we can't imagine why people are willing to go out of their way to try to fool people, especially if they can't get any facts right in their story. The good news, even if we fooled you with giant number 5, the rest are very much a reality. Some are fearsome predators, while others are of a more docile temperament. All of them, however, are massive examples of what Mother Nature can produce. Number 4. Giant squid filmed in deep ocean. We were amazed in 2013 when NHK and the Discovery Channel teamed up to bring us footage of a massive giant squid swimming around in its element. The deep sea expedition marks the first time anyone has ever managed to get the ocean predator on camera in its natural habitat and has been a huge benefit to science. The team used an underwater submersible vehicle to head as deep as 2,066 feet in order to get the shot, with over 100 dives logged. That's a ton of time spent underwater. As this sub wasn't remotely operated, the team had to physically cram themselves inside, equipment and all. Overall, they spent over 400 hours in the tiny sub, which must have been really unpleasant for those involved. All their hard work paid off, however, when they noticed something nearby around 15 kilometers east of Chi Island. Once they had a target, they followed the giant specimen to as far down as 900 meters below the ocean's surface. The squid they filmed was around 3 meters long, which isn't anything to laugh at, but also isn't enormous by any stretch. The giant squid has been known to reach lengths far exceeding this. Part of the reason for its less impressive length was that the squid's 2 longest arms are actually missing, potentially torn off in a past fight. One of the researchers said that it would probably have been closer to 8 meters in length if the arms had been attached, which sounds more like it. Turns out that these squid will use other small squid as bait, holding onto them and using them to attract other prey. That's pretty cool, and it's interesting that they managed to film it with one such bait squid in its arms. The giant squid is elusive and difficult to track, with the only recording prior to this one taking place in 2006 after a giant squid had been caught and brought up to the surface. These monstrous predators in their natural environment would be incredible to see, but even in a submersible vehicle, we'd still feel pretty vulnerable. The largest recorded giant squid measured over 18 meters, which is enough to take on a sub and win if it wanted to. They do take on sperm whales and come out on top after all, making these giants terrifying when they want to be. There has been so much speculation as to whether or not there are multiple species of giant squid, with no definitive answers so far. Evidence currently points toward just one species in total, but many scientists think that more could lurk out there, hidden in the depths. Number 3. Whale Shark Haul. A group of fishermen probably expected a good haul when they set out, but nothing like what they eventually came back with. This massive plankton eater is the largest species of fish in the entire world, but was done in when accidentally caught in the trawler's nets. The team said that the fish was still conscious and alive when they first pulled it in, but it unsurprisingly died a few hours later when they were able to bring it back to shore. The scene was met with large crowds, with huge numbers of people hoping to catch a glimpse of the monster as it was hauled onto the docks. The fish took 2 industrial cranes to lift it safely ashore, as well as a lot of effort. Even though the whale shark is listed as an endangered species, they're still hunted in many parts of the world and can fetch quite a high price all told. This particular whale shark weighed over 15,000 pounds and measured an insane 36 feet in length. The largest ever recorded was a little over 40 feet, making this an exceptional specimen and one of the largest ever found. Although it was a little on the lean side, with the average weight of a whale shark coming in at around 19,000 kilograms. Some claims have been made that whale sharks over 50 feet long are not uncommon, but none have yet been officially verified. While this is still somewhat small compared to other giant creatures, such as the giant squid, it's still worthy of note. The fish is so big that a group of people are even able to stand upright on top of it while they try to get the ropes in the right place. That's a lot of bulk, although those workers are pretty bold to be standing there. That would certainly be a weird sensation, even with the whale shark dead. It's sad to think that people still actively hunt these magnificent creatures, with this case being even worse because it was completely accidental. It's a good thing, however, that these giants aren't a threat to humans, or we'd have a serious problem on our hands when it came down to what to do with the whale sharks. We'd rather not think about it. Number 2. Black Sea Hare. Slugs are pretty gross, right? They don't seem to offer much and leave a trail of disgusting mucus wherever they go. Plus, they can be hell on your flower beds. Sea slugs, we want to say, are even worse. They move far more quickly and grow to disturbing sizes underwater. If you're like us, you can't stand them. This next video features a guy who seems to enjoy these weird giants. Aaron Sanchez is a tide pool expert, which means he likes to run around on the coast looking for odd creatures and other crocodile hunter-esque exploits. In this video, he's looking for black sea hares, which can weigh up to 30 pounds and are basically enormous black sea slugs. The host, named Coyote, gets way too excited when Aaron spots a sea hare and dashes over for a closer look. Taking things even further, he picks it up for everyone to see and reveals a black mass of something. If you were looking for evidence of alien life on Earth, this would probably feature in your catalog. The black sea hare is disgusting and, while somewhat resembling a snail or slug, really looks out of this world. Moving it around in his hands, you get a sense that this animal is straight out of a horror movie. Prometheus rings a bell here, and we wouldn't want anything to do with it. Thankfully, these things aren't found all over the place, unless you live along the west coast, in which you'll probably be familiar with them. They're called sea hares because of their antenna-like appendages, which are said to look like rabbit ears. We don't see much rabbit in this bizarre animal, but we're gonna take that in stride. We're honestly too busy being grossed out while being unable to look away. If this mass ever came at us while we were swimming, we'd have a heart attack right then and there. We're sure this species of sea slug, unlike some others, doesn't move very fast, even in the water, but we wouldn't be willing to test that theory in practice. When placed side by side with another species of sea slug, you can immediately see that the black sea hare is an absolute Goliath of the slug world. These guys also sometimes squirt ink, much like a squid, when provoked or attacked. But the black sea hare, thankfully, isn't able to completely douse you as it doesn't produce any ink itself. Number 1. Deep Blue. The most ferocious giant on our list today, Deep Blue is a great white shark estimated to be around 20 feet in length, with a fiery attitude. The great white revealed herself to the world off the coast of Guadalupe Island in Mexico during a cage diving expedition. Cameramen inside the cage were astounded by her sheer size and said that even though they knew they were probably safe, they were definitely a touch worried during the ordeal. Everything went off without a hitch, and even if they did have jitters, you can't really tell. The footage they captured has been incredibly informative and a huge benefit for anyone interested in shark research. It turns out that Deep Blue was pregnant at the time of the attack, adding to her size. That being said, a 20-foot great white, no matter how big, is still able to cause some serious damage many times over. Great whites usually only reach around 15 feet in length with a mass of around 5,000 pounds, meaning Deep Blue is well over average. She's also fairly old, with estimates putting her at around 50 years, which is impressive to say the least. We haven't heard much about Deep Blue since the footage, shot in 2013 and released in 2015. We can't wait to find out more about this giant ocean predator in the near future. There's every chance that we might never see her again, with the ocean being as large as it is. Sharks are protected in the area where Deep Blue was first discovered, meaning that she does stand a better chance of avoiding poachers, but shark migratory patterns crisscross the globe, potentially taking her to more hostile or hard-to-reach environments. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like.